Hello, Washington Commanders fans. We have some explosive news circulating behind the scenes in the NFL, involving two of the hottest names right now. Imagine our team taking the field for the 2025 season with one of the biggest trades analysts and fans have ever considered. Sounds crazy, right? Stick with me until the end because I'll explain the reasons for this possible move and analyze what it could mean for our franchise. And look, this isn't just another random speculation. This is the latest insider information on the Commanders. And of course, don't forget to like. It's just one click, it's quick. Everyone saw Terry McLaurin's extraordinary season. He was simply brilliant, reinforcing his importance in the offense since the arrival of rookie Jayden Daniels. For the first time in decades, Washington managed to unite talent, youth, and high-level offensive energy. But even after personal records, tense conversations about a contract renewal have begun to complicate his stay. McLaurin is now at the center of a stalemate with management, seeking a value commensurate with his elite performance, and the team may not be so willing to give in. The fact is that McLaurin is at the peak of his market value. This opens the door for trade speculation, especially in a league where financial flexibility and strategic vision are almost as valuable as on-field talent. If the organization decides to trade him now, it will gain salary cap relief and still have opportunities to add more pieces to areas needing improvement in the roster. Something fundamental for those who want to remain among the NFC favorites in the coming years. That's where the name TJ Watt comes in, a pass rusher who needs no introduction. Named Defensive Player of the Year in 2021 and consistently among the league's most feared, Watt is unhappy with his role in Pittsburgh and doesn't hide a certain discontent. Analyst David Hellman of Fox Sports put forth an attractive hypothesis, a straight-up trade between McLaurin and Watt, solving problems that are currently critical for both sides. Let's analyze the situation together. The Commanders have been searching for years for someone who can truly transform their defensive pressure and give coach Dan Quinn, a specialist in strong defenses, the missing piece to turn the team into a powerhouse on both sides of the ball. Watt, even with a high salary, would bring an immediate impact, elevating the defense to a new level, taking advantage of Daniels' rookie contract period to maximize collective potential without exceeding the budget. On the other hand, Pittsburgh also faces uncertainties. Watt's relationship with the Steelers management isn't the smoothest, especially regarding renewals, and the possible arrival of McLaurin would answer Aaron Rodgers' long-standing request for an all-pro receiver, especially if 2025 is indeed the last year of the legendary quarterback's career. It's important to remember, with Deebo Samuel arriving and promising rookies joining the receiver corps, Washington's offensive unit wouldn't be completely weakened without McLaurin. Of course, we would lose star power and leadership, but for those who follow the NFL, know that building winning teams requires strategic sacrifices, especially when there are plans to keep the team competitive in the long term. Another crucial point is the emotional and practical impact of this trade. McLaurin's possible departure to Pittsburgh would directly affect the hearts of both Commanders and Steelers fans, as both are recent pillars of their franchises. It would undoubtedly be the biggest offseason trade if it goes through. Both teams would be risking the culture built in their locker rooms to seek a new level of performance on the field. The trade, if it happens, would have profound consequences for everyone involved and would open a new chapter in recent NFL history. For Washington, it would be a time to trust new talent in the passing game and elevate the defensive unit to elite status once and for all, provided Watt maintains his performance and remains motivated. For the Steelers, McLaurin could be the final piece needed to attempt one last great moment alongside Aaron Rodgers. There's still the challenge of contract renewals, which put pressure on all sides. Neither team wants to pay exorbitant salaries indefinitely, which makes this trade even more interesting from an administrative standpoint, as both could postpone important decisions and maintain room to invest in young talent. Now, a special piece of news and an exclusive behind-the-scenes analysis of this hot offseason directly for the most attentive NFL fan base. And I want everyone to stay with me until the end of this video, because what we're going to discuss here could change how you see our team's next steps. Today, we'll talk about the 5 Commanders players who went from near anonymity to becoming absolutely undeniable, the true unbreakable players of this 2025 preparation. If you're one of those who vibrates with each athlete's improvement and want to deeply understand how our franchise is renewing itself, subscribe now, hit the bell, and leave your comment, because only then will this channel continue to grow, always bring differentiated content to those who truly cheer. It's been some time since the demand for results returned with force to the Commanders roster, especially after the restructuring done by Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. Big names arrived, the bar rose for veterans, and even the rookies felt the competitive atmosphere. But unlike other off-seasons, this time we saw a group of players who were considered average or even forgotten gain a new face and a new attitude on the field. You could see it in their determined look and their commitment in every practice. And I have to say, as a fan, it's inspiring to see athletes evolving, fighting, and proving they deserve a prominent role. The truth is that Quinn and Peters never hid their intention to strengthen the roster options. They have stated that internal competition is essential to extract the maximum from each position, and it was no different in preseason training. Leaders knew that to fight again at the top of the NFC, everyone would need to raise the bar in intensity, discipline, and technique. Previews already showed some expected highlights, but they also revealed positive surprises that even made life difficult for analysts, who are now trying to understand how nobody saw this growth so soon. Speaking now of the names that have been dominating behind-the-scenes conversations, it's impossible to start this analysis without mentioning Quan Martin. Although always respected by Washington Commanders insiders, Martin was still seeking national recognition, which is finally beginning to arrive. After a season full of overcoming obstacles, including physical ones, Martin returns to the scene in 2025 with the promise of being the absolute leader of our safety corps, especially after the controversial departure of Jeremy Chinn. This is the kind of player who inspires not only by the numbers, but by his resilience and passion for the sport. And for those who have been following, you know that Martin spent the last season dealing with 2 shoulder injuries, yet still being a vital piece for the defense. The staff saw there a chance to further enhance the player, and the position change from nickel cornerback to playing as the main safety highlighted the talent that had already stood out since his college days. Rest assured, the competition with names like Will Harris, Jeremy Reaves, Percy Butler, and Tyler Owens only made Martin evolve, establishing him as a reference for a group that should still surprise. Incidentally, there's no way not to mention how the arrival of Harris brought more dynamism to the safeties. Harris, coming from the Detroit Lions, brought experience to complement Martin, while names like Reaves remain fundamental for the rotation. The work between them is one of mutual respect and great harmony, something essential to stop opponents as strong as the Philadelphia Eagles. The mission is great, but the internal atmosphere shows optimism and confidence in the defensive project. This confidence is enhanced by the growing attention of the national media on Quan Martin. He's already appearing on lists of promising players and being mentioned as a possible revelation of the next season. The fans are expecting him to truly assume this leadership role in the defense and help the team evolve even further. I have a lot of faith in this process because when the core of the defense is solid, the entire defensive system tends to grow. Now, changing positions, it's worth highlighting the trajectory of Luke McCaffrey, who started as a big question mark last season and now enters this year's training as a sure bet for the offense. Son of the legendary Ed McCaffrey and brother of star Christian McCaffrey, Luke arrived in the roster carrying expectations in his name and earned a spot with humble work, talent, and above all, versatility, both as a wide receiver and in kick returns. Even facing fierce competition, with the arrival of the experienced Deebo Samuel and the selection of promising rookies like Jalen Lane, McCaffrey didn't get intimidated. On the contrary, he took advantage of the absences of McLaurin, Noah Brown, and Gallup during mandatory minicamps and seized every opportunity, standing out in training and receiving praise from Jaden Daniels himself. This type of attitude is what separates paper athletes from those who truly make a difference during the season. It's interesting to observe how McCaffrey managed to add even more dynamism to the receiver group. His numbers grew, and his kick returns thrilled the coaching staff, who already see him as someone much more consistent and mature. Knowing how to handle the pressure of being in the NFL, Luke gained the confidence of the locker room and promises to finally seek a permanent place in the offense. It is in this healthy competition for space that the team gains depth, something fundamental in a conference where any injury can impact the roster structure. Adam Peters was visionary in creating a meritocratic environment, because while some names stagnate, others rise and become indispensable through their commitment. Fan, write down this name. Luke McCaffrey could be the positive surprise of 22-25. Another interesting chapter of this offseason was written by Percy Butler, a safety who was considered for release due to his contract and lack of playing time last year. Faced with pressure, Butler responded with surprising dedication in preseason training, being praised even by coach Dan Quinn for his new mentality and focus. This type of resilient behavior is where true career turnarounds emerge, under the watchful eyes of the coaching staff. Butler knows he won't have an easy life, as Quan Martin and Will Harris are favorites in the rotation, and names like Jeremy Reaves and Tyler Owens are also in the mix, as well as being heavily involved in special teams. But instead of settling, Percy intensified his work, improved his technical aspects, and has been giving clear demonstrations of improvement. This captivates everyone, especially because it shows that a place on the roster is a daily conquest. In the NFL, exceeding expectations is almost as important as posting impressive numbers. And Butler is putting this philosophy into practice, proving useful not only in his original position, but also in varied packages on defense. The fact that safeties coach Joe Witt Jr. is already considering using him more frequently is a sign that real growth is happening, and all eyes are on him at the decisive moment of camp. Another story of overcoming adversity also draws attention this preseason. Colson Yankoff, a tight end that nobody expected to see on the 53-man roster in 2024. Even ignored in the draft and without great expectations, Yankov showed a totally different mentality from the start, seeking learning from veterans and training above the standard in every opportunity. His determination is contagious and inspires the group. After a discreet but effort-filled last season, Yankov has been showing great improvement in routes and pass reception, an area where he attracted little attention at UCLA. Now, in off-season activities, he is making space in a group that includes heavy hitters like Zach Ertz, John Bates, and the promising Ben Sinnott. He knows the competition remains huge, but this never-give-up attitude is paying off. Having the chance to learn from Zach Ertz, who renewed for another year after a great season, serves as an incentive for Yankov to pursue his prominence in the NFL. John Bates, known for his blocking strength, signed a long-term contract, making life even more difficult for rookies. Even so, Colson proves daily that each training session is a new opportunity to tell a surprising story. In American football, making space amidst so much competition is not easy. But Yankov's example shows that persistence, combined with talent, can transform the destiny of underestimated athletes. The staff is closely monitoring his progress, and if he continues at this pace, he will certainly have more playing time in the regular season, something few would have bet on a few months ago. The fifth highlight on our list is Jordan Magee, a linebacker who came with draft bargain status in 2024 and faced the bad luck of injuring his knee just when he was on the rise. Instead of getting discouraged, Magee dedicated himself to rehabilitation and regained his form at the most important moment, returning to intense activities with the explosion and tactical intelligence that excite the entire coaching staff. Magee knows that to grow as a defender, he will need to maintain a high level on special teams and gradually earn playing time in the defensive rotation. He is already being tested in packages with 3 linebackers alongside experienced names like Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. This movement shows that Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn see potential for growth for the youngster, who should assume a larger role as he gains momentum. Magee's challenge is clear: to prove on the field that the investment in him is worthwhile, showing consistency both in coverage and in run defense. His urgency in training demonstrates maturity and a desire to be important in building an even more efficient defense in 2025, capable of going head-to-head with the league's best offenses. The fans who are tuned into the broadcasts have already noticed how in sync he is with the veterans in the unit. This integration of previously underestimated players with the more established pieces forms the core of the Commanders' identity for the new season. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn's philosophy is clear: nobody has a guaranteed spot, and commitment on and off the field is what truly counts. When athletes understand this, we observe accelerated evolution, greater commitment, and of course, a direct impact on the win-loss record. This meritocratic scenario also serves as motivation for other athletes on the roster. Knowing that effort can transform a career makes everyone take training with utmost seriousness, raising the collective standard and creating an environment where hidden talents finally explode for the fans to see. When coaches prioritize fairness and reward those who produce, the tendency is for the entire roster to embrace the year's objectives. Finally, fan, I want to know, which of these players who went from forgotten to unbreakable do you believe will have the biggest impact in this new cycle of the Washington Commanders? Will our franchise surprise us again and present a new idol, like Quan Martin or McCaffrey, to the NFL? Don't forget to comment, spread this conversation to your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss a moment before training camp and the first games. The season promises to be exciting, and I'll tell you every detail here.